Hello everyone, and welcome. First off though, the title of this video might make it sound like I don't actually like the game too much. I actually do enjoy the game very much. I've been playing it for like 30-40 hours now, and I do enjoy my time very much. I think it's an amazing game. However, I think that there's a lot of stuff that is holding this game back, and it's quite sad that this is indeed the case. So I'm gonna be doing some fun around here just to get a little bit of gameplay. So, why do I think that way? So first off, we can see the fighting right here. I'm not gonna spoil too much about the story and stuff like that, but let me dig into the fighting first. So in case you haven't seen this game before, you've got your standard attacks, doing some skills, using item defense, fleeing, whatever. You also see on the top right where you have all the different characters. All the characters have an HP, SP for spells, and they also have these like glowing dots that they use to boost. Every turn, every character gets one of these boost points, and you can spend boost points to make attacks stronger and all your skills stronger. But after you've boosted, the next turn after that you will not get a boost point. So you have to kind of figure out when you use your boost points, when you not use your boost points. What sort of skills do you use with the boost? All that good stuff. Now, it's also you have different classes. You do gain the ability to select dual classes, like every character is gonna be able to have two classes. Somewhere after all the chapter 1s are done, you're going into chapter 2s. By the way, right now I'm like starting chapter 3s is where I'm at right now. So the system itself is not actually that bad. I actually like the system itself quite a lot, but it doesn't really have anything super special to it. So yeah, multi-classing, cool, but we've seen that ever since like Final Fantasy, Jobs itself, we've seen Final Fantasy 3, so that was a long time ago. And having two at once, I think that was Final Fantasy 5, or at least like having a class, but also using skills and passives of other classes. I think that was like Final Fantasy 5 or something. So it's not really anything super special in that regard, but it is a very fun mechanic. We have the boost points, which is kind of reminded me quite a bit of Bravely Default, which I think is also an absolutely amazing game that you should definitely play. Bravely Default and Bravely Second, where you can basically you gain these points and you can use the points to make your stuff stronger. It works a lot different in Bravely Default, but that's kind of the point, is where you try and use the flow of the battle to have really strong turns, but only after you have like prepared for it. So that's the gameplay. The gameplay in total, it's alright. It definitely serves its purpose. It's fun to play, but it's nothing super special. Like, for example, when you see most of the Final Fantasy games after like 6, where they all had their very specific system that they use to try and make the game special. Not really too much of that in here. The actual dungeon design, and I don't mean visually, I mean what you're actually doing in a dungeon is you're just walking through the dungeon. Basically every dungeon there's a straight path, and it has a bunch of forks, and every fork just leads to a treasure chest. And that's pretty much every single dungeon in the game, for the most part. I mean, I've played through like, how many dungeons so far? Like 20 dungeons, like a lot of all the story dungeons so far, and some side dungeons as well. So, and I've like 90% of them were exactly that. There's one straight path and a bunch of forks that have treasure in them. Now you could say like, well, most RPGs are like that, but not really. Because imagine an RPG having like many different ways, and you're not quite sure which of them leads to the end. So you go that way, walk for like a few seconds, and you walk another way, and then after a minute or so you find, oh, I came back out where I started, and you like try and figure out where the actual path to the goal is. But the thing is, in Octopath Traveler, it's not that there's multiple paths, but only one is the real path. There is only one path. There really is only one path, and at some point there will be branches, but you can, for the most part, you can see immediately, oh, this branch leads me to a treasure. There was like 1 or 2 dungeons in the game where I was like, okay, I'm gonna try and just go to the end without picking up a single treasure, just by looking at the path. And I was able to perfectly do it without accidentally stumbling onto a treasure, because I could always perfectly tell which is the way to the end and which is the branch that just leads to a treasure chest. It was like the dungeon design, actual gameplay design of the dungeons in this is some of the worst that I've seen in any RPG. Like, let's be honest there for a second. Just walking a straight path, branch, chest to chest, branch, chest to chest, branch, chest to chest, and there's only like one actual path leads to the end. I really don't like it. I think that was terrible. So overall gameplay, I like the gameplay, but it's nothing super special, and dungeons are a low point, which is what they really shouldn't be. What else do we have? Other than that, we have the story. The story, why? You have 8, instead of having like one story where you have 8 characters living that one story, you have 8 different stories that all work in parallel to each other and don't really connect, at least. I think they might connect after chapter 3, I think someone said that, but so far, like 40 hours into the game, none of the stories have connected in any way. And the characters haven't even really talked to each other. Like when you first meet a new character, they're like, hey, you want to help me out? And you go, yeah, I'm gonna help you out. And then there's like, then the characters don't even talk to each other anymore. You just have the characters all doing their own story. And then the gameplay happens where you walk around with all 8 characters, or like 4 at a time. So apart from gameplay, the characters might not even meet each other. There's like no point for the characters to actually meet each other in like story-wise. Story-wise, the characters are completely disconnected. Which makes sense if you're trying to have like 8 different stories going on, but at the same time it's like, why couldn't there be more stuff? There's like the travel banter, but it's just like 1 or 2 sentences that two characters just talk to each other, and it doesn't really give you the doesn't really give you anything to look at between characters. You don't really get the sort of dynamic between characters that you would otherwise maybe get. Like for example, there's one place where Hanit and Ophelia talk to each other, and Hanit is like, no, you're the most beautiful, and then Ophelia is like, no, you're the most beautiful, and then they like both people go like ... and they're like, we should definitely talk more to each other. It sounds like there's gonna be more stuff there, like there might be some interesting stuff going on there, or character development, or actual character development between characters. Or maybe you could have, I think at some point like Therion talks to Olberic, and of course you have like the Honorable Knight versus the Petty Thief. So what is gonna be the Petty Thief versus the Honorable Knight? How are they gonna get along on this party? But no, none of that. Even though you have 8 very different characters, there's not really that much dynamic between them. And the actual individual stories that you have, the individual stories of every single character that you have is absolutely standard, cliche, naive, boring. I don't know what else to call it. The actual stories, I mean, they're not offensively bad. They're definitely not. They're not Final Fantasy level, Final Fantasy 13 level of absolutely irritating and offensively terrible, but they don't really do that much either. They're just like, you just sit there and have a story happen in front of you and just like, oh, okay, I guess that happens. By the way, in case you're wondering what I'm doing right now, I'm searching for arcades, but their spawn rate is like 1 in 1,000 or something. That's all that happens in the story. There's like completely nothing actual of interest is going on. And before you say, well, it gets better later, I'm 40 hours into the game or something, or 35, I don't actually know how much hours, over 30 hours into the game. I've had so much time already spent with the characters, and if the story of all the 8 characters is still boring and cliche, and even if it gets better later, it won't be worth it. You know? You can't give me shit for like 2 plates and then be like, but the 3rd plate is gonna be a 5-star dessert. Nah, I don't really want that either. If I have to eat 2 plates of shit in order to get to the plate of dessert, no, I'd rather not eat that entire thing. That's usually what I say about that. But there is one thing about this game, or like 2 things about the game that I think are absolutely amazing. And you've been listening to one of those amazing things this entire time. The music. This game is one of the best soundtracks that I've ever heard in my entire life, and I have heard the Dustforce soundtrack. This is even better than the Dustforce soundtrack, probably. This might even rival the Nier Automata soundtrack, though I'm not quite sure, because the Nier Automata soundtrack is absolutely amazing, but this soundtrack, oh my god, is it good. And the transitions between all stuff, you get to a point where there's like the boss, and you talk to the boss in front of the boss fight, and you get like the character music or something, or like the dangerous music and stuff, and you're like, oh my god, boss fight's gonna start. The boss fight starts, the music still continues, until a very specific point in the song, where the music then does a very smooth transition, a seamless transition into the boss theme. That's intended. They're like intended themes in each of the themes, where it's like, okay, on this point we're gonna have this interlude that leads into the boss fight. So it doesn't cut to the boss fight theme, it doesn't just fade into the boss fight theme randomly. No, it has seamless transitions to the boss fight theme at intended themes, and it's fucking amazing. I love that. Every time the boss, I just get to a boss, not even the fight itself, I just talk to a boss, I turn up the music all the way, and I'm like, oh, that transition, it's gonna happen, it's gonna be amazing, and it is amazing, and I love it. Also, when you play a game like this, obviously, you gotta turn the music all the way up, maybe some voices. I don't care about this stuff. Get this out of there, who cares? Music, oh my god, get that all the way up there. Play games like that. Play Final Fantasy 14 like that as well. 14 soundtrack, oh, so good. Anyway, the soundtrack is absolutely amazing, and the presentation and the detail that has gone into this world and into this game is also absolutely amazing. I love it. I love, for example, that you have, at one point, you have to fight a bunch of guys in an arena, but before you fight the guys, you can have one of your party members inspect the guy and find out what his weaknesses are before the fight begins. I love stuff like that. You actually use the gameplay mechanics to give yourself like a gameplay advantage. Also, NPCs in this game, like regular town NPCs, actually have a gameplay use. You don't really get that in most other games, that NPCs actually have gameplay use for the player, so you actually want to interact with all of the different NPCs. That's absolutely amazing. I want to walk around town, I want to talk to NPCs, I want to do all of that stuff, because I get gameplay use out of that. Like direct gameplay use. I love that. Why can't more games do something like that? The last time I played a game that did something like that, it was Vampire's Dawn, which only like German people are gonna understand, because that's like a very old German RPG Maker game, where you could like, where you're like a vampire and you could, of course, suck people's blood, but you could also turn people into items, you could turn people into vampires, you could do all sorts of stuff with people in that game. You could just flat out steal their souls, you could do everything with NPCs. So NPCs were like a resource that you wanted to play around with, and I feel kind of like in here as well, where NPCs are kind of like a resource that you want to play around with and see what you can find. And maybe it's not gonna work out, and maybe you're gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna challenge you to a duel. You can do all sorts of stuff with NPCs in the game, and I love that. I love stuff like that. I love that every single NPC in this game actually has a reason for being there. Together with the music and the way it looks, and then when you boost, you get like look at like this is something you can only do with this sort of graphics, where everything looks like pixelated in 2D, but then you think you're fighting in like a 2D environment, but then when you boost, you see the lighting change so much everywhere, and you're like, oh my god, this is actually a 3D environment that I'm in, and the lighting plays around with that so much. I love that. I love that so much. There's so much cool detail, the music, the presentation is absolutely top-notch. Like visual and audio presentation is top-notch. NPCs actually have a use in this game. I love that stuff so much, which is why it pains me so much more that the story and gameplay are both mediocre at best. That's so sad. I see this so much more nowadays. Nowadays, I keep finding games where the gameplay is, or where they have like some really cool aspects, but then also other aspects, like, first off, you have some aspects where it feels like there's actually a vision here. There actually is some artistic vision that has gone into this game, into creating this right here. But then you have something fucking it up so royally, where you're like, why the fuck is it this way? When you have such a great artistic vision and so many cool things in this game, why is it suddenly going wrong? Like, so terribly wrong in so many other places. It's so bad. There's so much wasted potential in gaming nowadays, and this is another entry into that. Why couldn't you have just been a bit better a focus on the gameplay when you're fighting so much in this game? When you can fight every NPC in the game? Why isn't there not been more focus on actually having really cool gameplay? Like, expand the job mechanics. Every job in the game only has like, look at that, how many skills are there for every job? Let's look at that. Every job has like, let's count them, 8 skills. You start with 2 of them. And you could argue that half of these you probably never use. So every job has like 4 skills that you ever realistically use in a fight. And until you dual class, that's all you have. And you dual class, you've got 8 skills that you realistically use in any given fight. That's not a whole lot. That's not a whole lot. If you had like 4 characters and maybe one class is shared by 2 characters, that's not a whole lot of stuff you actually do in any given fight. Boosting is nice. Why wasn't there more expansion on boosting? There's only like 1 skill in the entire game that I've learned so far that has anything to do with boost points, which is merchant can donate boost points. That's about it. There's nothing else you can do with boost points other than actually like boosting, and I guess divine skills. I know there's like 4 hidden classes in the game, and I think they might do something with that, but that's like really end game. For the most part, nothing really cool happens in that sense. So yeah, why is it that way? Like one of the games that I played recently where I think also has a shit ton of wasted potential was Yooka-Laylee. Yooka-Laylee has so much charm and humor and cool music, and the controls are on point, apart from flying controls maybe. But it's so fun to just run around in that game and just talk to characters because there's so much life and charm that went into that game. But there's also so many brain-dead decisions where I'm like, how did this happen? How did this happen? How did the minecart sections in their original way, they've been significantly changed ever since then, how did the minecart section in the original way, and I'm talking about the like balance and feedback that you get and the control that you get over the minecart, how did that actually make it into the game? How did no one notice that that's bullshit? How did half of the bosses get into the game the way they did, and they've also been changed ever since release? How does that stuff even happen? How did that stuff even happen? I don't understand how some of that stuff made it into the game like that. And of course the game got bad reviews because of that, because if you're having mostly a really good time, but there's like 1 or 2 places in the game that absolutely make you frustrated and you shake your fist going, that's bullshit, then of course overall you're not gonna like the game, because those few places where you went, that's bullshit, they're gonna stick with you in your head. And I feel similar to here in the story, when, for example, the dancer story is pretty much sort of like, I'm gonna kill all these guys. And then that happens, and on the way you have this really like cliche portrayal of like, did you know there's women getting abused? Here's women getting abused. And then you kill the guy that's abusing them, and then you move on to the next town where also women get abused and they kill the guy that's abusing them. And that's all that happens. I don't know, there's not really anything special going on here. There's not really any super big, awesome character moments that really make you feel like that character has an agency over what's going on in this world. I don't know, I don't enjoy stuff like that. So much potential, especially because you're saying that we don't have one specific strong storyline where all the other storylines have to fit into that storyline. We're just saying every single character has their own story, and so we're gonna put all of our effort into seeing what all these different characters are gonna be up to. But so far, 2 chapters in, we like spend about 5 hours or so with every single character, which is a long time in a game like this. Even though I spent so much time with all of these different characters, I don't actually feel like any of these characters are that amazing or enjoyable to watch. I don't understand it. I don't know. I'm so sad. I'm so sad that this game has wasted so much potential. It's still fun to play though. It's still fun to play. I'm definitely gonna enjoy the game. I think it was just barely worth the price tag that it has, but not by a whole lot. Not by a whole lot. It just barely makes the price worth it, but not much more. And that's sad. That's really sad. I'm sorry guys, I ran way too much. This was supposed to be a very short video and I've made it so long now. And I mean, what I'm doing right now is I'm just playing the game while I'm talking, and I thought, hey, if I only talk for like 5 minutes, it's gonna be totally fine. But now I've talked for like 20 minutes or something. How long was it actually? 18 minutes. And now I feel like it wasn't even worth it. So yeah, overall, gameplay and story is mediocre at best, but the rest, the presentation, visual and audio presentation, and the attention to detail and the NPC mechanics are fucking amazing, which is so sad that this is even the case. So yeah, that was that. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and see you guys next time.